For 16 long months, he was a ghost. The world's most wanted man, Pablo Escobar, was on the run. His billion-dollar cocaine empire was in flames, his army of killers was dead or in jail, and the walls were closing in, fast. This is the story of that hunt, the final, desperate days of a kingpin.
And this was the man they were hunting. In his own words, completely defiant. You can hear the arrogance, right? He truly believed he was untouchable, a god in his own country. He thought he'd either die an old man or rule from the shadows forever. But this was the reality. Just 16 months after that boast, Pablo Escobar was dead on a rooftop in Medellin. So the question is, how? How in the world did they do it? How do you hunt a man who is practically a god? Well, to hunt a monster of that size, it took more than just the local police. It took this unbelievable coalition of forces. 3 separate groups, each with their own rules, all gunning for the exact same target. First up, you had the public face of the operation, the Search Bloc. Now, these were not your average cops. This was a 600-man elite unit, handpicked because they were the ones who couldn't be bought. Trained by the U.S. Army, they had one single job: find and neutralize Pablo Escobar. Then, working in the shadows, America brought in its ghosts. A top-secret intelligence unit with the codename Centra. These guys were the masters of signals intelligence. Their tech was so futuristic, people who saw it said they could literally pluck information out of thin air. They were the ears of the hunt. And then there was the third group, a group that clawed its way out of the underworld itself. They called themselves Los Pepes, people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. This was a vigilante death squad made up of his most vicious enemies and bankrolled by the rival Cali cartel. Their methods were just as brutal as Escobar's, and they were terrifyingly good at their job. So you have this 3-headed monster hunting Escobar, the law, the spies, and the vigilantes. And with that kind of pressure, the net just started to tighten. His entire world, once this impenetrable fortress, just began to crumble, piece by piece. And the speed of his fall was just breathtaking. Look at this! October 92, his last loyal security chief is taken out. By February 93, Los Pepes starts their terror campaign, and Escobar's own family has to run for their lives. His attempt to smuggle them to Germany fails, and they basically become hostages in a hotel. By November, Los Pepes has executed 50 of his top guys. He was completely and utterly alone. And you have to understand, this wasn't just some sterile police operation. Oh no, it was personal. It was a blood feud. You can hear the raw hatred in these intercepted phone calls, with Escobar just screaming threats at the head of the Search Bloc, Major Hugo Aguilar. And Major Aguilar gave it right back to him. You know, he and his men had watched their friends, their colleagues, get blown to pieces by Escobar's car bombs. For them, this wasn't just about the law. It was about revenge. And that hatred, that intensity, it fueled the hunt all the way to the bloody end. So after all those months of running, paranoid, alone, Escobar's entire empire, his whole life, it all came down to one single fatal mistake. A moment of human weakness that completely overrode years of criminal genius. The date was December 2nd, 1993. It was the day after his 44th birthday. The place, a simple middle-class house in the Los Olivos neighborhood of Medellin. The stage was set for the final act. For years, Pablo Escobar lived by one single unbreakable rule. Never, ever stay on a radio phone for more than 2 minutes. He knew that was the magic number. Any longer than that, and the intelligence agencies could triangulate his position. 2 minutes was his shield. It kept him alive. But on this day, he was desperate. His family was basically being held by the police in a hotel, and he had to talk to his son Juan Pablo. And that conversation went on. Past 2 minutes, then 3, then 4, then 5. And that was it. That was the tiny crack the hunters had been waiting for all along. And just like that, the tech went to work. Step 1, Centra Spike's gear gets a voice match. Confirmed. It's him. Step 2, advanced triangulation tech zeroes in on his exact radio frequency. Step 3, the Search Bloc guys on the ground, using these handheld directional finders, just follow the signal. Stronger, stronger, until it leads them right to the front door of one specific house. They had him.
What happened next wasn't a clean arrest. It was pure chaos. A violent, desperate final stand as the king of cocaine made one last run for it.
The search bloc didn't bother knocking. They just smashed the door down, guns up, ready for war.
Escobar and his last bodyguard opened up immediately. And just like that, this quiet residential street became a battlefield.
He was trapped. There was no way out. So Escobar did the only thing he could think to do. He scrambled out a back window onto the tiled roof next door, barefoot, pistol blazing, trying to escape.
But there was nowhere to run. A bullet slammed into his side. Another one tore through his leg, making him stumble. And then a final, single shot hit him right above the ear. The hunt for Pablo Escobar was over. The chase was over, yes. But the story? Not by a long shot. Because the question of who fired that final, fatal bullet, well, that's become one of the biggest mysteries in the whole history of the drug war.
Escobar's own son is adamant. He says his father swore to him that he would never be captured alive. He believes his father followed through on that promise. 14 bullets for his enemies, and the last one for himself. To the Escobar family, it was suicide.
The problem is, the men on that roof tell a very different story. And they say the forensic evidence, the angle of the shot, the lack of powder burns on his skin, it all points away from suicide. So if he didn't do it himself, who did? Basically, you've got three competing stories. The official version is that the Colombian search bloc took him out, a clear win for the good guys. The family's version is that he took his own life, a final act of defiance. And then there's a third story from inside the paramilitary world that claims it was actually the leader of Los Pepes who fired the kill shot, a final piece of street justice. Maybe the real truth is that in a hunt this messy, where the lines between cop, spy, and killer got so blurred, a clean ending was never really in the cards.